Amphibians by Angela Royston. Meet the amphibians. Scientists divide living things into groups. This is called classification. The animals in each group have certain things in common. One group is called amphibians. Most amphibians spend part of their lives in water and part on land. A frog is at home in water as well as on land. A salamander is a type of amphibian. Amphibians are a part of a large group called vertebrates. All vertebrates have a backbone and a hard skeleton inside their bodies. Birds, reptiles, and mammals are also vertebrates. Body shape. Amphibians are divided into 3 groups. You can tell which group an amphibian belongs to by the shape of its body. Adult frogs and toads have 4 legs and no tail. Salamanders and newts have 4 legs and a tail. Some male newts have a crest along their back and a colorful belly. Caecilians live in hot, wet places in the tropics. Caecilians have no legs and look a bit like worms. Most caecilians also burrow through the soil. Unlike worms, caecilians have bones and teeth. On the move. Different amphibians move in different ways. Frogs and toads have webbed feet, which help them to swim fast through water. Most use their long back legs to hop over the ground. When a frog is in danger, it quickly leaps to safety. A salamander's legs are so short that its belly drags on the ground. Salamanders and newts have short legs and squirm from side to side as they walk. Some amphibians spend most of their time in the water. They swim or crawl along the bottom of streams. Warming up. Amphibians are cold-blooded. This means they cannot make their own body heat, as birds and mammals do. Instead, they take in warmth from the sun and their surroundings. A frog warms up in the daytime and cools off at night. Frogs sleep through the winter in underground burrows. The warmer an amphibian becomes, the faster it moves around. In the winter, when the weather is very cold, amphibians slow down. Many dig a burrow and hibernate during the winter. Changing shape. Most amphibians begin life as tadpoles. The tadpoles look very different from the adult amphibians. A tadpole hatches from an egg which its mother laid in water. A tadpole looks a bit like a tiny fish, the life cycle of a frog. The frogs spawn, or eggs, turn into a tadpole, which then turns into a young frog, and then an adult frog. Tadpoles feed on plants in the water as they grow. As the tadpoles grow bigger, their bodies change. Some grow legs and their tails become shorter. This change is called metamorphosis. Masses of eggs. Some amphibians lay thousands of eggs. The eggs float in the water in a mass of jelly called spawn. The tiny tadpoles grow bigger and bigger until they are ready to hatch. Each black blob in this frog spawn will be a tiny tadpole. One by one, the tadpoles will hatch from the eggs. Each black spawn is a tadpole. A male midwife toad carries the eggs on its body until they hatch. Many of the eggs are eaten by fish and other animals. Some amphibians, such as the midwife toad, lay fewer eggs and look after them until they hatch. Tadpoles. A tadpole is at home in the water. It uses its long tail for swimming and it breathes through its gills. However, many tadpoles do not survive because they are eaten by fish and other animals. At first, salamander tadpoles have feathery gills, but soon the gills are hidden under the skin. This tadpole has grown its first pair of legs. When a tadpole is about 5 weeks old, its legs begin to grow. With frogs, the back legs grow first. With salamanders, the front legs are the first to grow. Never grow up. Most tadpoles grow lungs so they can breathe air. However, some salamanders keep their gills all their lives. This amphibian has pink gills and spends its whole life in water. A mud puppy grows to about 11 inches long. Axolotls, mud puppies, and sirens stay a bit like tadpoles all their lives. They never leave the water and live mostly at the bottom of ponds and streams. You can tell which ones are sirens because they have only 2 legs. Becoming an adult. After a tadpole has grown 1 pair of legs, the second pair grows. A froglet's tail becomes shorter as it grows. However, salamanders keep their tails. As its tail gets shorter, the growing frog uses its legs and webbed feet to swim. This tiny frog is sitting on a leaf that floats in the water. When it is 12 or more weeks old, the frog or salamander leaves the water and climbs onto a leaf or twig. It stays close to the water, ready to jump back in. Slippery skin. Amphibians have very thin skin. Their skin is so thin that water can move through it. This means that an amphibian has to keep its skin damp. Otherwise, the inside of its body would dry out. Most amphibians live in damp places, so their skin does not dry out. This salamander is brightly colored to warn attackers that it is poisonous. An amphibian's skin is covered with a thick, slimy liquid called mucus. Some amphibians have poisonous skin, which helps defend against attackers. Tree frogs. Tree frogs live high above the ground in the tropical rainforests. The air is so damp their skin never dries out. They lay eggs in pools of rainwater that collect in the leaves. Tree frogs have special pads on their feet to help them cling to plants. A golden dart frog is the most poisonous amphibian of all. Some tree frogs defend themselves from attack by making poison in their skin. The poison from the most poisonous frogs can even kill a human. One incredible amphibian. Amphibians need to live in damp places, but a few amazing frogs live in the hot deserts. They survive by burrowing into the ground and waiting until it rains. Australia's Great Sandy Desert is usually very dry, but sometimes it rains very hard. This frog spends 10 months of the year hiding in its burrow. When they hear rain, the frogs come to the surface and lay eggs. The eggs hatch and the tadpoles develop very quickly. Just over 2 weeks later, the new frogs are ready to dig their own burrow.